You are now watching the Amazing Mets Pregame Show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? It's your boy CP, and welcome back to another Amazing Mets Pregame Show. It is game 146 coming right up. We'll talk about last night's game. Obviously, I was live for the post game with John from Pure Adrenaline Sports. Rob was live for the in-game stream. I know you had to dash out to work, but how you doing, Rob?
I'm doing good. Unfortunately, we played like crap yesterday, but we got a rubber game today, and we have a chance of winning the series, and that's the goal right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing more, nothing less. Win the series. Obviously, we talk about the importance of that each and every time. First pitch is at 3:07 p.m. We are coming at you live right now at 1:32 p.m. for the pregame. We do have some lineups released. Obviously, we'll talk about the pitching matchups as well. And Sean Manaea, versatile, elite, right? At this point, lefty for the New York Mets going up against AL pitcher of the month for the month of August, Bowden Francis, and we'll talk about that pitching matchup. Obviously, before we do, if you are here on a weekday with us, right, during those work hours, we definitely appreciate you, whether you're working from home or whether you have us on at your job with some headphones in. It doesn't really matter. We definitely appreciate you all being here. Please hit the thumbs up on this stream. Keep commenting in the live chat section. Vent out the frustrations. If you didn't get enough venting out last night in our post game in the live chat, please go ahead and do so today, because we will be talking about the lack of offense and this lineup as well and what they're going to be facing with Bowden Francis. So obviously drop those comments in the live chat. So Rob, again, want to get your thoughts, especially because you weren't able to be a part of that post-game stream yesterday with John and myself. What did you make of, I guess, the performance of not only David Peterson, because we know that he struggled. Obviously, pitchers are allowed to have one of these games, but primarily the focus was the offense. What did you think about both sides of the ball for the New York Mets yesterday?
It looked like they weren't ready to play yesterday, to be quite honest. I mean, I'm not gonna kill Peterson. He's been outstanding. At one point, he was gonna have a bad game, but just happened to be yesterday. His location wasn't there. He couldn't that fastball. You could tell his mechanics were off. Every ball, his arm was behind his body. Every ball was high into the outside corner, especially to right-handers, and he just didn't have it. He looked confused on the mound, like he couldn't find it yesterday. It's one of those games, so I'm not going to go crazy with Peterson. It was time for the offense to step up and help him out a little bit, right, when he was struggling, right? The pitching has been carrying us. The offense didn't do the job yesterday once again. And the defense, my God, the defense. I mean, just simple plays, just bad mental mistakes on the field. You know, Alonso didn't know what the hell he was doing after he caught the ball. Could have easily got a double play. That led to a run. Vientos led to the Vientos easy ground ball led to a couple of runs. And the way the Mets offense was going, it was game over, right? They had a couple opportunities during the game, but they didn't capitalize on it, and they lost. It was probably one of the worst games they probably played in over a month. Like, usually when you lose, it's like, all right, we didn't either hit. It just seemed like everything yesterday just did not work out. Defense was bad. Offense was a no-show, and Peterson finally had a bad game, and all that led us to a loss.
I really can't back up what you just said enough, right? And that was the perfect sort of crap storm for the New York Mets to go out there and lose that game. Obviously 6-2. People in the chat as well are agreeing with you, saying the defense definitely did not help David Peterson whatsoever. There was a handful of plays, obviously, like you mentioned, Pete Alonso, Mark Vientos, obviously a couple pass balls. And we're not going to sit here and tell you all that David Peterson went out there and pitched like he deserved to win. He definitely didn't. But again, coming into yesterday, he was 9-1 with a 2.75 ERA. I know a lot of people still aren't sold on his advanced metrics, and they're kind of waiting for him to come back down to earth. But you cannot deny the way that this starting rotation and this bullpen has held this team down. We talk about it all the time, especially over the last week or so, where these bats kind of have gone a little bit quiet. Talking about yesterday and that Cincinnati Reds game, and the day before yesterday as well, in that 3-2 win against the Blue Jays. These bats and these at bats, I should say, do not seem inspired. And You can only win so many ball games against decent or half decent teams in this league when your bats don't show up. And for you, right, as an offense to expect these starting pitchers to go 7 scoreless innings or 7 innings only allowing 1 earned run is an absolute joke, and it should not be relied upon because let's face it, that's not realistic whatsoever. And we've been telling everybody that, and I'm sure everybody that watches this team already knows that. So obviously, again, just some things I want to highlight that I highlighted yesterday in the post game is that the Blue Jays yesterday, as a team, as a total offense, had 6 extra base hits. They had 4 doubles and 2 triples. The New York Mets, right, up until that Jose Iglesias pinch hit, went 23 straight innings without an extra base hit. That is not sustainable offense, Rob, at all.
No. And you know what's even more funny about that? They've been still winning games despite that exact stat. And the other thing was, right, not even that, they also talked about like in the last like 5 games, it was a total of 13 runs. Like it's a huge problem at this point right now. And it's amazing to me. Like I just don't get it. I really just don't get it. And the one thing about the at bats yesterday as well, how many times did that umpire call that high outside pitch at the top of the zone? He called that the whole game. And all I seen Mets batters looking at that pitch, not trying to foul it off, getting mad at the umpire who was Now, the umpire wasn't that good yesterday, but that one pitch in particular, he'd been calling a strike the entire game. Guys like Alonso and Vientos got mad when he was calling that strike the whole game. That just showed me they weren't that much in, like their mind wasn't in the game as much as they should have been yesterday. It seems like it was just, show up and win type of game without actually doing anything. That pissed me off and that concerned me a lot. Now, maybe they'll get back on the horse and be actually a lot better today, but they seemed like they weren't focused yesterday. It seemed like everything was bothering them all day. Umpire, bad calls, bad defense. It just seemed like it just spiraled out of control yesterday. And it annoyed me because the one thing that I don't like about any of my teams, no matter what sport it is when I see a lack of effort or a lack of mental awareness. And that seemed like what it was yesterday. Besides David Peterson, because the effort was there. He just didn't have it. Everybody else, it seemed like they didn't want to play yesterday. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. There's really nothing more to it. It's a great point that you mentioned as well about the strikes looking, especially with the fastballs up in the zone from Chris Bassett. Chris Bassett was in there throwing max 93 miles per hour, and there was just so many strikeouts looking. And just, again, like you said, I'm just going to echo it, the unpreparedness in the at-bats in terms of those situations where you find yourself down and you can't even fight off a pitch because you're completely, it looked like guessing up there for an off-speed pitch that never came your way. And even if the guy's throwing 93 miles per hour, if you're guessing, guess what? You're not in a mindset to swing at the ball when you see it coming straight at you with no movement like you were expecting. And that's exactly what it did yesterday. Chris Bassett just freezing those batters, and they were completely helpless. They had to pray, right? Like Pete Alonso was going back to the umpire and telling him that he didn't think there was a strike. It was in the zone.
Yep.
You can't just sit there and pray that it's going to land out of the zone. And for the umpire to save you, you have to be prepared to swing the bat. And that's exactly what Keith Hernandez yesterday on the broadcast as well mentioned. And he made sure to call that out. And he was making some sort of comparisons to the approaches or lack thereof of the 2022 New York Mets and how they were so hard to strike out. And they just basically seemed like they would put everything in play when it came down to it. Now, I don't completely agree with that because obviously the 2022 New York Mets, it seemed like they had a lot of luck on their side. But I do agree with you. Be a tough out. You can't be up there guessing. And that's really the primary focus that I wanted to mention in terms of what we saw last night. It's going to take a complete 180 turnaround from the effort with the bats that we saw last night. And obviously the lineup is what it is. It's a little bit different. You don't have DJ Stewart. You don't have Eddie Alvarez. You have more or less your everyday lineup. But again, we have another shakeup in this lineup. So before we talk about that lineup, I just want to make sure I want to shout out everybody in this chat. Ricardo, Ken, happy birthday, Ken. Appreciate you being here. Darren, Theo, Stoney, I see you all. Brad, I appreciate you all being here. John from Pure Adrenaline Sports, you guys are the best. Ethan, thank you so much. If I missed you all, I'll make sure to shout you out. Keep on dropping those comments, like I said, because again, at the end of the day, I went on my rant yesterday in the post game. I did my fair share of yelling, and I do apologize because I don't get that animated. I can't remember the last time that I have gotten that animated on a stream. But what I saw yesterday, again, if you don't get the results, that's completely fine. But are you putting in the correct process to at least try to achieve those results? That's not what I saw yesterday. So let's hope for a little bit of a turnaround. Obviously, things don't get easy. Chris Bassett, again, with a familiarity. It was kind of funny to see Chris Bassett hit Pete Alonso with something slow, and Pete Alonso kind of like pumping at him like he was pretend being angry. Again, something that kind of infuriated me because the bats at that point were just lifeless. But again, they are all familiar with Chris Bassett, and they should have been familiar with what he was throwing, but it looked like they weren't whatsoever. It looked like they had just faced him for the first time in their lives, which is a little bit ridiculous. But the thing is that the task does not get any easier today, Rob. Again, like I mentioned at the top of the stream, obviously we have Sean Manaea, our best pitcher going up on the mound. He's been fantastic for this New York Mets rotation, especially up at the top, while this team has been missing virtually Kodai Senga for the entire year. And they're going up against a very solid righty in Bowden Francis. If you all don't know the scouting report on Bowden Francis, he's not going to blow you away with the fastball. I feel like I always say this, and I said the same thing yesterday in the pregame with Chris Bassett because he doesn't throw that hard. But again, he mixes his pitches up in a correct manner to get hitters off balance. And guess what Bowden Francis's primary off-speed pitch is? The pitch that is notorious, right? And it's not the slider. Let me just put that out there. It's not the slider, right? So Pete Alonso can take a little bit of a sigh of relief, but it is the splitter, the split finger fastball, right? That has troubled the New York Mets when pitchers are throwing it with command and with efficiency. And that's exactly what Bowden Francis did in the whole month of August. Rob, I know that this lineup has undergone another shakeup. You see Brandon Nimmo right there in the 4 spot. You see Pete Alonso dropping down to 5. They virtually switched from yesterday. You see Jose Iglesias back in that 2 spot, right? That 2 spot seems like it's anybody's up for grabs. We've seen Winker, Iglesias. Who else have we seen there? Nimmo we've seen there, and everybody else in between. So what do you make of the lineup, but also what do you make of this pitching matchup first and foremost?
Well, the pitching matchup, I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game at all. I think both of these guys are going to shut down both lineups. To be quite honest, I don't trust the Mets lineup at this point right now. I don't. Like, it's unfortunate, right? We've been winning games despite our offense. I'm really worried about this game today, right? Bowden Francis is really damn good. You talked about the split finger fastball. It's nasty. It is nasty. The Mets are not good at hitting that ball, and he mixes up a lot as well. But that split finger fastball is his go-to pitch. And with the way the Mets have been striking out as of late, that's a put away pitch for him. And the Mets got to be careful. Look, they got to go with a game plan. Both lineups actually, because Sean Manaea has been outstanding. Francis has been outstanding. Both lineups need to basically try everything. They have to avoid the bad strikeouts, and especially the Mets. The way they've been just constantly striking out over and over and over again in big spots with runners in scoring position. But with this lineup, we talked about this on the roundtable. Jose Iglesias in the number 2 spot. That was what we talked about. I think everybody agreed with that. That's a good move. Somebody that's actually hitting in this lineup, put him up there. And it's good. Lindor did get a hit yesterday. I think Lindor is going to find his way out of it rather quickly. He's done it for the majority of the season when he cooled off a little bit. Vientos, I like him in the 3 spot. Nimmo in number 4, a little odd, but Nimmo has been putting better at-bats together, mostly better than Alonso, Martinez, and Alvarez. So I'm okay with it. Not crazy about it, but I'm okay. Alonso, I just don't know anymore. That Jesus Christ. I'm saying he takes it onto the field. He doesn't know how he catches the ball and he tries to ask Mendoza where I throw the ball. Like he just did, like he freezes. Like it's a guy that's second guessing himself. He's guessing too much. And that's a huge problem. And he's doing it at the plate as well. Martinez, again, he's going to be one of those guys that will get a big hit during a game and have 3 bad at bats after that. So expect 1 good at bat from him in this game. That's the what Martinez we get now. Marte, I wish Marte was more up in the order. To be quite honest with you, I like his at bats since he's come back from injury. Alvarez, I don't know. He's another one that just lifeless at bats. Harrison Bader, he did hit that home run not too long ago. Looked like he was coming out of it a little bit, hitting to the opposite field. Overall, with this lineup, I'm not. It's our everyday lineup, right? It seemed like this could be a playoff type of lineup. Hopefully, Nimmo is not number 4, but hey, listen, Mendoza's trying to find any which way. And listen, this is smart to mix it up. They're not hitting. You can't leave it the same. You can't leave it the same. So if the lineup was the same as yesterday and the day before, then Mendoza's not doing his job. You can't be scoring, a couple of runs over this stretch of games where the lineup is striking out at a crazy rate and leave it the same way, because then you're not doing your job. Mendoza's trying something. And John, you're absolutely right about that. And yeah, that's the problem with this lineup right now. So do I have confidence today? I don't. In Manaea, yes. In the lineup, especially where Francis going, I don't. Maybe they'll surprise me, but I really don't trust this lineup right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Cope here is asking me, how I'm feeling, especially I know Cope was part of the post game with John and I last night. And again, you guys got an animated performance from me because I was absolutely fired up with what I saw. And rightfully so, because as we mentioned, there's no excuses for this team anymore. This team has to go out there and perform more often on a nightly basis. And they can't really afford lapses. They afforded a lapse, right? And I was kind of like, I'm not worried about that last Cincinnati Reds game, but I was like, from here on out, you got to play at the top of your game. And again, losses happen. We're not expecting the Mets to win every single game, but look like a competent offense out there. Look like you belong and actually want to go to the playoffs. And that is not what we saw from the lineup yesterday, again, for like the 10th time. So Colt, if you're asking me how I'm feeling, I'm going to back up Rob's sentiment, is that this offense needs to show me something, right? It's no more me trying to sort of guess and make excuses of how good overall this season they've been with how many categories that they're top 5 or top 10 in the league in. That's all out the window at this point. They need to go out there at 3:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Toronto and show me something, and show me something earlier rather than later. Sean Manaea is going for the New York Mets. I have full confidence in Sean Manaea, and if you have 2 eyes, if you're a Mets fan, you should have confidence in Sean Manaea as well, right? Like that is a given with what he's produced at this point. Love Sean Manaea. It's kind of an interesting trend to me that I've noticed with Sean Manaea, though, when he utilizes his arsenal, right? His off-speed pitches and also his fastball. I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but I looked at his Savant page and the fact that Sean Manaea is throwing his fastball, right, a little bit less in terms of the four-seam fastball. He's going sinker predominant, sinker heavy, Rob. Like every single time out, he's like 35, 36, 37 pitches with that sinker. But with the four-seam fastball, he was throwing it at a high clip, but the last 2 starts, unexpectedly, it started to drop off. The changeup, again, as well, it's kind of like a hit or miss with Sean Manaea in terms of how many times he's going to throw it. So I'm curious to know what his arsenal, what his distribution is going to look like, because I've been praising this rotation in terms of going out there and mixing their pitches very well. I think Peterson tried to do that yesterday. His command was just off. But that's kind of what I'm looking for in Sean Manaea. But again, like I said, if you've been watching New York Mets baseball this entire season, like there's no reason not to trust Sean Manaea. Again, we will talk about it until it's not a fact anymore. This offense is the problem right now. Simply, It is the problem. And I love what Carlos Mendoza did, like you said, with this lineup. We talked about it on the roundtable. I proposed Marte. I know Hector proposed Iglesias, and there's some people in the chat saying Marte and Iglesias at the 2-hole. Yeah. Either one of them. And that's exactly what he did today as well. And we've seen Jose Iglesias sporadically for like a start or 2 in that 2-hole, and he had success. And right now, especially with the way Lindor kind of cooled off a little bit. Again, we expect him to kind of get out of that funk, and like we are more confident in Lindor right now at this point with what he's shown us than a Brandon Nimmo and a Pete Alonso. But really, right now, Jose Iglesias is the New York Mets' best hitter. So, of course, you want to work him into the top of the lineup. And imagine I came into 2024 and I told you all, the guy that's starting off in AAA, that's going to get the call up, that's going to spark plug this comeback in the season with the OMG and just his performance defensively and offensively, right, was going to be the guy alongside Francisco Lindor up the middle and Jose Iglesias. This has been such a weird season, man. But I'm here. I'm here for it. At this point, we're all here for it.
Yeah, it really has. It is amazing. You know, it's always like these are special years, especially. Hey, Heck, what's up? You know, these years are special because, you know, forget all the gimmicks, OMG and the grimace and Haktua and all that crap that really doesn't mean anything on the field. It's just fun for fans. The way that they went about this season, 0-5 starting the season, 11 games under 500. People were talking about trade deadline and selling big time. Then amazing performance, basically playing 20 games over 500 since the end of May to get back to over 10 games over 500. And, you know, getting closer to 14, 15, 16 games over 500, you know, where we're hanging around right now. And right now at the moment, tied for the third wild card, it's an amazing turnaround, and it's unlikely guys. It's like Iglesias, you know, who didn't even play in the majors last year, who, you know, got an opportunity, signed a minor league deal with the Mets. He's called up as like a reinforcement, basically a backup guy, basically shows up, plays well. McNeil gets hurt. He's the starter now. Vientos, nobody could expect a season like this with Vientos. You know, it is amazing, you know, that's with Alonso having a down year and where the Mets are right now. Alvarez is basically 90% of catchers in baseball who is an average, below average hitter and just basically a catcher. And that's what he is right now. So it's like, it's amazing. Like the supporting cast, and we talked about this earlier on in the season, many times on the roundtable, on any show that we've done. The supporting cast has done such a good job that they outperformed the stars of this team, except for Lindor. That's amazing to me. And if it wasn't for the supporting cast, where would this team be? We wouldn't even be talking about the games because they wouldn't be as important as they are with 17 games to play. So listen, it is amazing, and I love it. And these are the fun times because it's the little things that make this Mets team so much fun because it ain't the stars. Then, except for Lindor, nobody else really has been exciting. But the supporting cast, the guys that nobody expected, makes it a hell of a lot more fun. But you do still got to make the playoffs to make it a fun season.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's really it. We were going into this series, right? Ending the Red series and going into this series, talking about it on the roundtable, talking about who is going to pick up the slack, you know, alongside Francisco Lindor. And should Francisco Lindor go into a little bit of a mini slump, like he's kind of hit right now, he's kind of hit a little bit of a wall, who's going to step up and again, not more or less put this team on their back, but just step up and pick up that slack. And it's not just going to take one guy, like we've mentioned. I don't think outside of Francisco Lindor, I don't think any one of these guys is capable at this point of this season to carry this team all by themselves. I really don't. I don't see it from Brandon Nimmo. I don't see it from JD Martinez. I don't see it from Pete Alonso happening. I don't see it from any of these guys happening. So unless Lindor gets back on that ridiculous pace, which is a shame that we even have to ask him of that, right? I don't see it. So it's going to take a collective team effort because, again, this is a good lineup. This is a deep lineup, but it's not a quote-unquote star-studded lineup, especially with the down seasons of Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso, right? This could be, in a very good year, with everybody playing well, this could be considered a star-studded lineup, but it hasn't been that way. And the fact that the Mets are knocking on the door of 80 wins and directly tied there with the Atlanta Braves for that third wildcard spot, honestly, is a miracle at this point. So Again, this is your lineup for the Blue Jays on the left-hand side, and that's your lineup right there on the right-hand side for your New York Mets. Lindor's leading off. Jose Iglesias gets the start in the 2 spot at second base. Mark Vientos batting third. Brandon Nimmo gets bumped up to the cleanup spot. A little bit of a shock, but again, this just signifies to me that Carlos Mendoza is trying anything to switch these guys around and try to get somebody going in the middle of that order. Pete Alonso is your 5th hitter, right behind Brandon Nimmo. JD Martinez at 6, Starling Marte at 7, Francisco Alvarez catching, playing 8, and then Harrison Bader playing 9 as well, or hitting 9th, and I believe he's also playing center field. Again, the defense as well, something like Brandon Nimmo to the effect. We haven't mentioned Brandon Nimmo when we're talking about defense, but he has not been playing great defense at all in the outfield as well. You know what I mean? Especially when he's in center field. So again, can't give these guys extra outs. Any team, not only the Blue Jays, but any team, as Ethan said in the chat, no extra outs, but they have bats is what we're concerned about. So again, Rob, I don't think we have confidence in this Mets lineup until they prove us wrong and prove us different.
Yeah,
so
and
that's it.
you know what's funny? You talked about, like we're not expecting guys to put this team on their back. 100% right. But how about doing it for one game? How about that? How about Alonso goes 4 for 5 or 3 for 4, a home run, 4 RBIs? How about having a game like that? He really hasn't had a game like that except for like April. Just one game. How about taking control over a game where your lineup is struggling, but you're the one doing the job? Like it's just that simple. Like it's little things like that. I'm not asking for a 3-week stretch of outstanding play, outstanding offense, hitting, 10 home runs in 17 games and 25 RBIs. I'm not asking for all that. But how about taking over a game? I don't feel like Alonso has done that at all. And we keep on bringing up Alonso because he was supposed to be our big run producer, right? Right now, he should have well over 90 RBIs, probably even approaching over 100 RBIs at this point, and he hasn't. It's a huge problem. He's batting like 207 with runners in scoring position. I mean, that is bottom of the lineup production. That's how bad it has been. And then this is not new. This is something that has been a problem with Alonso in important, actual, real games that matter. Not games in August and September and most of the season when the games are basically pointless. He's games when the Mets are up big, that's when he pads his stats. That's when the runners in scoring position look better, but look in meaningful games, in late inning games, it is absolutely terrible. And again, it took a long time for a lot of Met fans to realize it, and the broadcast to finally bring it up live on broadcast. And it took that long, but this has been a trend. This has been Alonso his entire career, except for his first year. Every other year, runner in scoring position in meaningful games have been absolutely terrible. This is not new. He did this in 2022, specifically in September. And I've been bringing it up and making a point of it since then, a lot more. And finally, people are coming around. Look, we all want to have us get proven wrong by Pete Alonso. We don't want to keep on saying this. It's getting annoying. It's not even fun to talk about. It's not fun at all. But it's annoying to repeat myself and Chris to repeat himself and Hector and Hayden and everybody else that's a Mets content creator talking about Alonso. It's a trend amongst Mets content creators. It's annoying. At some point, he's either going to do it or not. And the season's ticking away quickly. I just don't trust it at all.
I don't really have my watch on me, but I always do this. It's like me looking at the time when these guys are going to step up. So it really is like the time is now. The time is now. Of course, the Mets are still in the race and they're going to be in it till the end. There's going to be a lot of flip-flopping in terms of the actual standings, and that's something that I've already accepted. I think a lot of Mets fans should just prepare themselves for. We'll talk about the, I guess, happenings around the league from last night as well in the next slide. But again, the last thing that I really wanted to get into from yesterday and today, obviously the guys aren't starting today, but I wanted to get your take on what we can expect to see in terms of the lineup combinations and who's starting versus who's not from now until the end of the season. Were you moved at all? I already know the answer to this. Were you moved at all with what DJ Stewart and Eddie Alvarez did yesterday?
Nah.
No one's moved. No one's moved.
No.
So again, what can we expect in your mind from now until the end of the season in terms of what's going to happen at second base and what's going to happen with DJ Stewart? Again, you roster 6 outfielders. It is what it is. But again, the middle infield conversation is always the one that I'm going to bring up, right? You don't have a guy that's 24 years old in his prime, 25 years old. He's 34 years old. There was a spot start yesterday for a reason, right? Whether it was because of Jose Iglesias is needing a day off or the Mets playing the lefty matchup, the lefty-righty matchup, because Eddie Alvarez is a switch hitter. Doesn't really matter what it is. He was starting over Jose Iglesias. You don't have Jeff McNeil anymore. What's going to happen at second base? Is it feasible in your mind to expect Jose Iglesias to start every single game from here on out?
I think they're going to try, but out of these last 17 games, can he play 15 of them? I don't know. I think that's a big question, and you were so right when you brought that up on the roundtable. And I know there was a little bit of pushback, but it's a fact. Like Iglesias still hasn't played Major League Baseball in 2 years since he didn't play last year. So, and then his age on top of that, and you're counting on him to play every day and be productive every day, not just show up, play every day. And I'm hoping he can, because you see what he does. Look, he pinched it yesterday, got a double down the line. Like he's just outstanding right now. And he's not taking anything for granted. Oh man. I hope, like, it was weird yesterday that with DJ Stewart and Eddie Alvarez in the lineup, because it's the middle of a series, right? I could see today, getaway day, you'll throw DJ Stewart in there and Eddie Alvarez. And not saying that the Mets would have won if they would have had Taylor in there and Iglesias to start the game. Maybe they would have won. Who knows, right? We don't know. But it was just an odd situation with that lineup. Like, was it just about throwing lefties in that lineup because of matchup purposes? I guess. But I don't know. I think I didn't like it at all yesterday. And, I'm not saying it proved us right about the lineup and those guys, but it was everybody in the lineup, not just those two guys, unfortunately.
Yeah, at that point. I mean, I'm not trying to make them the scapegoat at all, right? Because the Mets probably lose regardless with the way that David Peterson pitched and just the lineup looked in general, 1 through 9. But again, that's a concern for me moving forward. It should be a concern to everybody, because what we saw last night can't happen. It can't happen again. It really can't happen again. So I'm very curious how the Mets go and sort of configure that or try to get around that. I was surprised too to see that kind of lineup, given that the Mets have the off day tomorrow, right? I would have thought maybe try to win this series yesterday, get that out of the way. And then if you lose it, you're going to have to put those guys right back in the lineup today and then give them the off day tomorrow with no game on the schedule. But again, it's something where that's out of everybody's power. I mean, the personnel is the personnel, and Carlos Mendoza has the personnel that he's going to have to work with for the rest of the season. So I guess we'll just see how it works out.
Do you think that Carlos Mendoza try to, I guess, finagle a win or like sneak a win with what he put out there in the lineup overall because of David Peterson pitching so well? Do you think he just tried to sneak it in there and say, you know what, if we can get a win with this lineup, then we're playing with house money today? Like I know it was mostly probably the lefty in the matchup, but it just felt like they kind of played like they gambled yesterday. Like they put some money, not gambling on the game, but like they gambled with the lineup, seeing if they can sneak out a win with that lineup yesterday. I'm just thinking way too much out of this, but maybe I felt like that's what he was trying to do. Besides the lefty matchup.
I think that's valid. I think it's a both worlds kind of case, right? In this scenario, right? Hector's pointing out that yesterday was about wanting to load the lineup with lefties, which I've always hated. I've hated it. You've hated it, Rob. Everybody, pretty much the consensus is that why are we loading this lineup with lefties, especially if they're mediocre lefties? I'd rather take my chances with a guy like Tyrone Taylor, because you have the luxury of carrying multiple outfielders. Even before DJ Stewart was in the equation, go with the better guy, even if he's a righty, even though there's a righty on the mound, and Chris Bassett yesterday. Again, the middle infield situation is kind of like the Mets are handcuffed at this point to play whoever the backup is, being that there's only one backup at this point after the Jeff McNeil injury. And again, Jose Iglesias is going to need a day off or two between now and the end of the season. I've already foreshadowed that, and it happened. So yesterday was one. We'll see if another one's on the horizon, although I really would hope for it not to be, because that guy needs to be playing every single day for us to have the best chances of winning. But again, I think it's half of what Hector just said here, and it is also half maybe of the Mets trying to squeak out the series win, like you said, against a pitcher that they maybe thought was a better matchup for the Mets than the guy that's going today, and looking at who the rest of the series was going to be against, right? And Chris Bassett versus Bowden Francis. Again, we told you all that Bowden Francis is no joke. He's coming off of an AL Pitcher of the Month, right? Award nomination last month, and he's been pitching lights out. This guy is the real deal. So we're going to see how the Mets lineup handles it today. This is more of their A lineup with the personnel that they have. Again, it was weird because I would have thought that you'd throw out your best lineup in the middle series, which is why I'm kind of inclined to agree with you, Rob, but it doesn't really matter. Whether it's a combination of both that went through the head of Carlos Mendoza, or whether it was just truly about the lefties, whatever it may be, they lost the game 6-2. It was a poor performance, and we know that the Mets can't afford to throw that lineup out there again, virtually, if they want to just hang in this race with the Atlanta Braves, who ended up winning 12-0 last night after dropping that 1-0 game the day before against the Cincinnati Reds. So again, I don't really care what the answer or what the reason was. It was a bad lineup, and they produced poorly. And honestly, are we going to make excuses even if it was an A lineup that we saw, right? More or less in that Reds game in the third game, they also crapped the bed. They didn't look like they were having good at bats either. So, I mean, at this point, no matter what the personnel is, obviously we'd rather not see DJ Stewart or Eddie Alvarez, but these guys who are playing for those guys, right? Whether it's Tyrone Taylor, whether it's Harrison Bader, they need to step the hell up as well. It's about time. And at this point, if you're on the Mets roster, David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza basically have deemed you ready enough to play and competent enough to play in the middle of this race. And there's not really much pushback us fans can have on that. I know we have our opinions. People in the chat have their opinions, but it is what it is. And that's how we're going to have to ride out the rest of the season. So we'll see how the Mets make do, which is why I also don't think that this is the end-all be-all in terms of who's on this roster. There's going to be another call-up. You just never know who it's going to be. And that might come tomorrow, right? In the off day. It might come on the weekend, in the weekend series. I don't know. But there's going to be another shakeup to this roster, because I don't foresee Eddie Alvarez remaining on this roster. But again, I've already made that point. So anything else on today's game that you want to talk about?
Two things, technically somewhat about today's game, and then about yesterday. With Iglesias, and going back to what you said about giving him rest because of his age, I don't think him not being in the game starting yesterday was because of a matchup. Because if you look at his numbers, he's been very good against right-handers as well. I think it was a rest day. That just to finish that point. Why is Francisco Alvarez playing day game after a night game? That is odd to me. It's not like he's been red hot with the bat where you want to push him in the lineup and keep that bat in the lineup. I'm a little shocked that Torrens is not playing today. Maybe Mendoza liked his at-bats yesterday. I don't know, but it's odd. On day game after a night game, you usually see Torrens or your backup catcher in the ball game. And again, Alvarez is not red hot with the bat. He's not even, lukewarm with the bat. So I'm a little curious about why Alvarez is in the lineup today, day game after a night game, and not Torrens, who's been the better player since Torrens has been on this team. So I'm a little shocked by that, but maybe Alvarez will surprise us with a couple of good at-bats, maybe a couple of RBIs today. But that's the only thing that I have left, the two things that I really wanted to say.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I know Hector was saying that what's I guess Cohen said about Mendoza loading the lineup with lefties, and you're right. I mean, lefties are batting 299 against Chris Bassett compared to righties in 237, but if that is the logic that they're going to use to try to persuade me that Eddie Alvarez is the guy over Jose Iglesias, I'm sorry, I'm never going to agree with it. So they
Yeah.
can say that as many times as they want, and that can be their front and that can be what they use to. I'm not buying it. I mean, at this point where you need wins, I mean, I'm not buying that at all.
Yep.
So, agree. The splits are what they are on Chris Bassett. I agree, but again, it didn't work out in the Mets' favor. But we're not trying to convince you all that if it was the other way, it would also work out in the Mets' favor. The lineup was just up and down, just horrible. We are just trying to understand, I guess, where they were coming from. But again, lefties, they wanted to load up on lefties, so be it. The end result's still the same. And then also the reason why this is something that I wanted to bring up is that the reason why I don't give a damn, right? Not one single damn about this lefty righty matchup crap, right? If you look at Sean Manaea's splits, guess what? I'm pretty sure he has reverse splits against what you would want from that lefty righty matchup. Let's see here. Let's see if I'm right. I'm on ESPN right now. Sean Manaea this season versus left-handed batters. They are hitting 252 off of Sean Manaea. You want to take a guess what righties are hitting off of Sean Manaea? 192. The OPS versus left-handed batters is at 748, 749. The OPS against right-handed batters is 593. So again, I don't buy into any of that. I don't care about these matchups. The best guy has to play. And I don't care if that means it's righty on righty or lefty on lefty. So just wanted to point that out. Again, I've been preaching to the choir about this whole entire season. Nothing new, but I wanted to just let you all know that is a fact. So if we're done talking about the last night and then also today about the game that we have at hand, some news around the league. Obviously, the Mets improve, or I guess don't improve, right, in the win column. They are now 79 and 66, 13 games over 500. They have the off day tomorrow. And the Padres, Diamondbacks, and Braves all did win yesterday against their respective matchups. I kind of was being nice by throwing the Cubs in there. I don't think that they're going to be making a shot or a run at this. No disrespect to them, although they very well could. Anything could happen between now and the end of the season. But these are your updated wildcard standings. The Padres beating the Mariners 7-3 are now 2.5 games up on both the Mets and the Braves. The Diamondbacks shutting the Texas Rangers out 6-0 last night are now 2 games up on the New York Mets and Braves. And then the Braves obviously winning 12-0 and just putting an extreme hurt on lefty McKenna yesterday in Washington, D.C. Now are back up tied with the New York Mets. So again, this is going to flip-flop. This is going to be a tight race. I don't think the first or the second wild card are out of the question. Again, though, the Mets have to mitigate anything resembling of what we saw yesterday. So any final thoughts and words about anything regarding the standings or this team before we wrap things up? And we just got about maybe 45 to 50 minutes before game time. So we'll leave you all with this until the post game.
Yeah. Look, 17 games to go. If you go 10-7, that's 89 wins, right? You do a little bit better, you're in the 90 win column. So, I think it's going to take probably between 80 and 90 wins, because that means the Braves would have to go 3 or 4 games, 4 or 5 games over 500 as well. It's going to be, look, I think it's going to come down to the Braves series regardless. Unfortunately for us, we played the Phillies 7 times, but the Mets have played the Phillies well. So we'll see how that goes. But I think it's going to come down to a Brave series. It doesn't matter who wins series, who loses games and stuff like that. I think it's going to end up being either tied or somebody's up a game when we head to that series. And of course, it'd be very similar to 2022. It's just that you're not going for a division, you're going for a wild card. So it's going to be very interesting. And look, I don't think the second wild card or the first wild card is out of reach at all. We saw how fast we gained 4 games. Not even a week, we gained 4 games on the Braves. So it can happen quickly. I'd love to get involved with the Diamondbacks and the Padres because of our tiebreaker. But at the end of that Brave series, we win that series, we might have that tiebreaker as well. And that's going to help. We have tiebreakers against all 3 of these teams. I feel like it's gonna come to play, and that's just gonna benefit the Mets. But the Mets got to play good, regardless of what the other teams do. If they don't play well, it's pointless. Just win today, win the series, and at the very least, you'll have a tie at the third wild card. Because I think the Braves play Cincinnati, or who do the Braves play? Nationals still?
Nationals.
I'm sorry. They played Cincinnati for that one game, right? The makeup game. Yeah. Okay. So listen, hopefully the Nationals, kick their ass today and we win and be up a game. I hope. It's a lot of hoping for a Mets.
I wouldn't expect that to happen at all. The Nationals are pretty bad. But again, I was just looking at the Diamondbacks and the Padres schedule as well. Actually, primarily the Padres schedule. They do get the benefit of seeing the White Sox for one series between now and the end, but their last 6 are against the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, right? And that key series, if you can go into that Milwaukee series, if you're the New York Mets, being right there within striking distance of either the Diamondbacks or Padres, let them take themselves out, right? In terms of vying for their top of the wild card. And if you could sneak in there at number 2, then so be it as well. So again, you got to play. This is the time where these teams are playing the in-division opponents again. We see it with the Mets and playing a series against the Nationals remaining, a series against the Braves, and also having 7 against the Phillies. And then you see it as well with the NL West teams, them playing against each other as well for, down the stretch. So it's going to be an exciting time. We'll see what happens. We'll be with you all here on the pregame and the postgame every step of the way. The postgame is going down on the channel today, right after the game between Rob and myself. John is not going to be available for the postgame, so we got you all covered. Make sure you hit that thumbs up on both of our streams right here in the pregame. Obviously, there's about 45 minutes until game time. Get yourself some drinks, some food, whatever you got to do, and buckle up, because this is a very important win heading into the off day, both for obviously the standings, but also for the morale of us, the fans, and this team heading into an ever so important Philadelphia Phillies series. So again, thank you all so much. Subscribe to both channels, Talkin' Mets with Rob and CP New York Sports. For more 2024 Mets content, hit that thumbs up. If you missed anything that you all wanted to tell us, hit the comment section down below as well and let us know your thoughts and opinions. And we'll see you all for the post game as well. Definitely appreciate that. Rob, thank you so much. I'll see you in just a couple of hours. And as always, let's see how today plays out. Let's go, Sean Manaea. Let's go, Mets offense, please. Give us something to root for and cheer about. Let's go, Mets. See you all later. Peace.
Let's go, Mets, guys.